Why am I making this video? Ugh. Gyaru is a specific type of Japanese fashion and is characterized by tanned skin, dyed hair, and tons of makeup. The word gyaru comes from the English word gal, and the male version of a gyaru would be a gyaryo. The aesthetic is all about rejecting the traditional Japanese beauty standards, and its popularity peaked in the early 2000s. Usually gyarus are known for clubbing, partying, and being salacious. This is a pretty common trope within anime and manga, and a big influence for the gyaru stereotype came from a popular manga series called Gals, written by Mihona Fuji in 2005. The main character of this manga, Kotobuki, is a good person at heart and really doesn't give a crap about what other people think, which I think embodies the gyaru spirit. In more cultured works of art, gyarus are usually more flirtatious than your average person. Also, I've seen other anime creators make tier lists for this, so I'm gonna make one too. Personally, I love gyarus because they oftentimes have a darker skin tone, so easy A tier. Imouto in Japanese simply translates to younger sister, and it's a common trope within anime and manga, which makes sense why it's so popular in adult anime. This is also known as having a sister complex, which some psychologists say comes from a desire to protect or exclusively be with your sister. Yikes. But it's definitely not limited to Japan, as America also seems to love their siblings a little too much. I think it's so popular because of a couple reasons. Some people like the idea of someone who looks up to you, and even more when they're a childhood friend, but I guess like more blood related and a little bit more annoying. Some people may just enjoy the power dynamic of being the older sibling. The sexualization of sisters in general may have been popularized with Marvelous Melmo in 1970, written by Osamu Tezuka, yep, the same guy who wrote Astro Boy. The story is about a 9-year-old girl who is forced to care for her 2 younger brothers. She does this by eating a candy that turns her into a 19-year-old girl, and each time she does, there is a panty shot, and this could have led to panty shots becoming more popular as well. But from what I understand, this wasn't actually present in the original manga, so it's a little weird that it was added in the anime, and yeah, full disclosure, I'm not endorsing the anime, I'm just trying to give you a history on this stuff. I don't know if it's good or bad, but Walt, I don't know, man.
You've been seeming sus lately.
Anyway, I think the only people who actually prefer or like this genre are specifically people who have never had a sibling before, so I'm giving this a C tier. Ugly bastard refers to a usually fat and ugly guy who ends up getting with younger, beautiful women. Now, this is more of a Western term. In Japan, it's referred to as a mob oji, but it's really not commonly referenced. It's pretty unclear when this idea of the ugly bastard came about, and it's probably been around a lot longer than anime and manga itself, but we have a more pressing issue. Who actually enjoys this stuff? I guess we can assume that it's people who are ugly bastards themselves, which, okay, sure, that kinda makes sense. But then tell me why yaoi content, which is mainly for women, also has the ugly bastard genre. Clearly, there's a psychological thing where some people just enjoy seeing a fat, ugly bastard paired with a skinny, good-looking person. Now, every time I see a ugly bastard, they always have the creepiest smiles and just give off weird vibes. Honestly, these guys have the most disgusting auras imaginable. This is an easy F tier for me. Maids are such a big phenomenon in Japan that they have an entire industry of cafes that exclusively offer services where girls dress up in maid costumes just to serve you. So clearly the maid genre doesn't really come strictly from anime or manga, but Japanese culture in general, right? Now, when you look at the typical anime maid, you can see that they're actually cosplaying a very specific type of maid. The French maid. Japan has had an extremely long history with France, spanning all the way back to World War I, where the Franco-Japanese Treaty of 1907 was signed so Japan could raise loans in Paris. This has tied the two nations together, and ever since they've culturally influenced one another. If you ever visit Japan, which I highly recommend, you'll see that they have crepe shops everywhere. This is another pillar of French influence on Japan. The first maid costume in Japanese popular culture apparently comes from the erotic anime series Cream Lemon, so Japanese anime culture and French maids are clearly joined at the hip. But I think it's a little deeper than that. I would go as far as to say that the maid genre is almost a fetishization of French and European culture to a certain extent. And honestly, I don't blame them, because those costumes look nice. I'll give this genre an A tier. Ahegao is a facial expression that is done by someone who is just really enjoying their time. And it usually includes rolling or crossed out eyes, a tongue sticking out, and heavy blushing. The word itself comes from the katakana character ahe, which kind of just means to pant, and gao, which means face. This isn't to be confused with ikigao, which is when someone will make a certain happy face at the climactic point in a story, but Ahegao was a huge part of anime meme culture in 2016. I remember seeing pictures everywhere online of people wearing these weird Ahegao hoodies that just looked absolutely horrendous. God, being an anime fan back then just meant associating being with these guys, which really sucked. Personally, I find Ahegao a little absurd. Like, it's almost comically exaggerated in a lot of adult anime, but I don't really mind it because I find it more funny than anything. It can definitely get annoying if it's used in a weird context or like over and over again, so I would say B tier. A succubus is a female-presenting demon that appears in the dreams of men to seduce them. The male version of a succubus is known as an incubus. The idea of a succubus appears all over the world in old folk tales, and they were known to take the form of beautiful women. But after seeing them up close, you might actually notice deformities like bird talons or serpentine tails. Usually, succubi will attack you by physically draining you until you reach physical exhaustion. Back then, these were closer to monsters than hot demon ladies, but with more modern depictions, succubi are less often seen as horrifying monsters and more as seducing enchantresses that dominate men. I'm pretty sure the entire idea of succubus is tied to the idea of wet dreams, since they literally attack you while you're sleeping. You know, I'm guessing a priest got a wet dream one time and chucked it up to succubi. But in anime and manga, these creatures have turned into more docile, almost human-like characters, and the main character rarely dies after encountering one. A common character name for succubi is Lilith, who is theorized to be Adam's first wife before Eve, and a primordial she-demon who was banished from the Garden of Eden for not complying and obeying with Adam. One of the first big manga to feature succubus is Lilim Kiss by Mizuki Kawashita, whose main character Lilim clearly based on Lilith. Personally, I've always found succubi anime to be top tier, and honestly, if that's the way I have to die, at least I'm happy when it happens. S tier. NTR is just a shortened form of the Japanese word netorare, which essentially just translates to cuckold. Usually the plot starts with a happy relationship and ends with the guy aware of the cheating and crying about it. Honestly, it's a pretty depressing genre, and I'm guessing the only people who enjoy watching it are either extremely masochistic and like the idea of being humiliated, or you're extremely sadistic and you enjoy other people being broken. I don't think there's any in between here. A lot of people also say that NTR is popular because the cheating culture in Japan is really normalized, but the actual statistics beg to differ. Apparently, Americans cheat on average 30 to 40% of the time, while Japanese people cheat much less often. But it still begs the question why NTR is so popular as a tag in the first place, and to that I'm not really sure. But personally, this is the kind of thing that just makes me feel bad for the guy in the first place. Honestly, if there was an anime where the MC gets NTR and then goes to the gym and betters themselves, I would definitely watch that 100%. If I kind of think about it, Masamune-kun is almost like that. You should watch that anime, it's not bad. Otherwise, the only way I can enjoy NTR is if the person getting cheating on is like an old man who doesn't appreciate their wife and take care of them, but that's usually pretty rare, so I'm giving this a C tier. Futanari are individuals who are considered to be intersexual, as they contain the necessary body parts for both male and female reproductions. The Japanese word futanari literally just means to be of two kinds, so it's basically just their word for hermaphrodites. And yes, I know Astolfo technically isn't a hermaphrodite, but like, what did you guys want me to use for this icon? What am I supposed to use without getting demonetized? Although they might seem like a recent trend, this idea has existed for a long time in Japanese culture and folklore. The origins might even reach all the way back to Buddhism, with deities that don't really have a fixed gender. Shintoism has pretty diverse stories relating to the changing of genders. One deity, named Dosojin, sometimes has an ambiguous gender, being either female or male, or sometimes being both, but it doesn't really apply to modern Fudas. In today's culture, Futanari are almost female presenting. Honestly, I personally find them kind of scary, but that's because I watched Bible Black when I was 13 years old, and this blonde lady, she scared me forever. F tier. Nekomimi comes from the word neko, meaning cat, and kemonomimi, which basically just translates to animal ears, is the idea of a human character with animal ears. The oldest mention of a cat girl comes from an 18th century street show where a cat-woman hybrid was a character. And in general, stories of shape-shifting cat women have existed since the late Edo period, so cat girls have been around for a while. The oldest anime featuring a cat girl seems to be The King's Tale by Mutsuyo Seo, which was created all the way back in 1949, the same year that NATO was created. Nowadays, cat girls are everywhere, and I would argue that they are Japan's version of the American Playboy bunny girl. Although the big difference is that bunny girls are more on the sexy side, while cat girls are definitely going for a more cute moe angle. It's worth noting that moe as a concept is deeply rooted in anime culture, and could even be considered an entire subculture within anime. If you want to learn more about moe, check out my Every Anime Trope Explained video, but personally, just throwing some cat ears on a girl doesn't really do anything for me, so C for cat tier, I guess. Tentacles are pretty self-explanatory and honestly are just a meme at this point in the anime community, so let's talk about the history of tentacles because it's surprisingly long. Known in Japan as Sokusho Zeme, or literally tentacle attack, it involves an octopus or creature with tentacles doing things with a woman. The oldest example of Sokusho Zeme goes all the way back to ukiyo-e, or woodblock prints, specifically Kitao's Shigemasa program of erotic no plays in 1781. But after World War II, when the Allies were rebuilding Japan, they imposed certain restrictions on the Japanese by adding censorship laws to prohibit the creation of corn material. Leaders within the tentacle industry, whatever that means, said that they actually made this stuff to get by the censorship. According to the author, Toshio Maeda, at the time it was illegal to create sensual scene in bed. I thought I should do something to avoid drawing such a normal sensual scene, so I just created a creature. His tentacle is not a penis. I could say this is not a penis. This is just a part of the creature, and they don't have a gender. A creature is a creature, so it is not obscene and not illegal. Kinda weird how they use tentacles to circumvent corn, but I guess that's how the cookie crumbles. Personally, I find tentacles really weird. It's not my thing at all. F tier. Yaoi, also known as boys love, actually used to be a subgenre of shoujo manga, and is thought to have originated in anime and manga in the 1970s. But obviously gay people and gay stories have existed for as long as humans have. There exist special words like seme meaning bottom and uke meaning top for gay relationships, and it's common for fujoshi, or female fans of yaoi, to speculate in fictional media who might be which role. I've actually made a video covering yaoi in manga if you want to check that out, but when it comes to more adult content, yaoi is very much at the forefront of porn made specifically for women. And because I'm not really the target audience for this, I can't really rank the genre. It's also a huge and diverse genre that has a ton of different subgenres that honestly deserve its own video, but I'll put it in the G tier for gay. Mind break refers to a moment in an adult story when a person stops thinking logically because they are just having so much fun. Usually you see it paired with Ahegao and heart eyes. This is another tag that's honestly just kinda goofy. Like, most people aren't going feral in these situations, but if you only watched adult anime, you might think that that's how every woman reacts. Mind break can also be a much more sinister topic. In the case of a more infamous doujin, like Metamorphosis, where the main character goes through the depressing and honestly messed up transformation from a normal person to a crackhead, it's pretty messed up. Personally, I don't know what to give this. Sometimes it's really inoffensive and it's just used with Ahegao to make a scene more spicy, but other times it's a depressing look into substance abuse and just feels like a really sobering topic to think about. It honestly ruins the mood. I guess I'll give this a C tier because it's usually pretty inoffensive, but sometimes it could just ruin the enjoyment with sadness. Paizuri is a high-level technique that involves, how do I say this? I say a beautiful woman goes to the grocery store to buy some melons. She finds a young man there, a nice young man at the store, who buys a pickle. Paizuri would be this fine young lady helping water this man's fresh pickle until it's adult pickle. This act is obviously not exclusive to Japan, but it's clearly popular enough to have its own word that is basically a tag. Paizuri is made up of the word opai and senzuri, the word for self-pleasure. I don't think I need to tell you what opai means. I think Paizuri is great. I personally enjoy melons over peaches, that's just me, so I'd give this a solid A tier. Vanilla in this context basically just means normal. A normal couple engaging in normal consensual love. But nowadays I see a lot of people online calling others who enjoy vanilla boring or plain, but you know what, honestly, I'm tired of this slander. I'm gonna keep it real. If you don't enjoy vanilla, you're the weird one, okay? Gooning every day to Fuda cat girls doesn't count as a personality. Some of us are perfectly fine with normal consensual hentai. Keep that weirdo shit to yourself. Come here. If you've gotten to the point where you can't enjoy vanilla, then you need to spend less time gooning and more time outside. Stop spending all this time on your Discord roleplay servers, okay? Vanilla is an easy S tier, and I'm tired of pretending that it's not. Really? F tier. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing, and please leave a nice comment telling YouTube just how wholesome this video was so they don't demonetize it. Peace.